Today, I know that those of you using magnetic filters already know how much easier they are than threaded filters, but I've got a couple of little accessories here that I've had a hand in helping design that make using them even simpler. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. I think if you've been following my channel at all, you know that I love working with Kase's magnetic filters. The glass quality is just amazing. The ease of use and simplicity of these things is incredible. And over the years, they've been upgrading this filter line. You know, they listened when the Wolverine line was a little less magnetic than everyone wanted, and the second generation that came out not only had the increased magnetism we wanted, but these beautiful color coding, and was even simpler and had a little bit of lens thread on the external to catch a pinch cap or use another filter on top of. Just innovative beyond anybody else out there and adapting quickly to the needs that photographers let them know about, including me. And I'm really, really proud to have had a hand in the design of these two cool new accessories that I think make working with the filters even simpler. While you're watching this video, I'm in Costa Rica, at least the time this video launches, with a great crew of workshop participants and David Archer. A lot of repeat people will be out in the jungle shooting in that spectacular landscape with all of those amazing wild animals. So look for some content coming on that. These filters and these accessories that I'm talking about and all the gear that I use and recommend is linked in this video's full description, or you can just run over to my website, hudsonhenry.com. You can just click right here. You can look at filters, you can find all my gear, you can find links to all my gear. All those links help me out, the store helps me out, so I really, really appreciate your using those links. All right, so let's jump to it. The first thing I want to talk about is this really, really, really cool new plastic lens cap that Kase has come out with. It's magnetic, but it's plastic. Now, how is that better than the metal? Well, let me just show you. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the myths about using hoods with filters or the importance of hoods. I will say, I get questions from people all the time, you know, well, how do I use a hood with a filter if I'm using a step-up magnetic adapter ring? You know, it's too wide to put my original lens hood on. And I will just say that most cases, I rarely use my lens hoods. I have three exceptions in which I regularly use my lens hoods, and that's my 100 to 400 millimeter, my 400 TC big exotic prime lens, and my 51.0. And the reason that I use those hoods is just to protect the front lens element. You know, I find that with the modern coatings and the lens design and the nanocrystals that they're putting on these lenses and modern lens design, there's almost no flare or ghosting, shooting straight into the sun, shooting in bright studio conditions. Really, the purpose of the lens hood to me is to protect that beautiful glass from rain, from impact. And the minute I put a filter in front of it, I don't really need the lens hood anymore. So let me show you what's so cool about this new plastic lens hood, partly by showing some of the problems that I talked to Kase about using their metal lens hoods. So with the original Wolverine filters, you couldn't really use a pinch cap on the filters. When they came out with the Revolution line, they improved that significantly. For those of you wondering, this is my ultralight tripod setup, the custom build that we put together and sell in our store with its amazing Acrotech pan and tilt head with the tilt base tension adjustment on the right, the lock knob on the left, the pan knob, everything stays nice and level. And I'm using Acrotech's awesome nodal rail to just get balanced so the camera doesn't flop forward and aft. So I've got my ZF with my Voigtlander 51.0. I've taken its hood off and I've threaded a 62 millimeter to 100 or to 82 millimeter Kase magnetic adapter ring on here. It's just simple as can be to thread those on and thread them off since they stick out to the side so much, all right? And that makes just tossing any of Kase's magnetic filters on there a breeze. So I want to throw my polarizer, my circular polarizer. It's really, really thin and it just rotates right on that adapter. It doesn't need to be two big rings sticking way out off the lens causing vignetting. It's very, very, very thin by design, all right? If I want to stack a 3-stop neutral density filter on there to just be able to work at that 1.0 aperture and bright light without going to a really low ISO. Boom, I can still rotate them both and do the polarizing if I want. The problem with Kase's original metal lens cap was that when I put that lens cap on and I went to take the lens cap off, it would always take the closest filter with it. The magnetism between the filter and the lens cap is so strong, it's difficult to separate them. You go to take it off and it's problematic, all right? You could easily use it just on the adapter ring itself. That's no problem, you know, it's the only thing you're pulling off. But using it with filters was always a little frustrating for me. You know, I first really fell in love with the Revolution filters walking around in Cuba with Nikon's 85 1.8 or 1.2 lens. I was testing it out. And the thing that I love about the Revolutions is that you can drop a traditional pinch cap in there. There's just a single thread in there. They thought people would probably want to use a legacy filter, a threaded filter, maybe on the outside of a magnetic filter. To me, that kind of defeats the purpose of the magnetic filter. I'm very happy to leave threads behind. But the ability to use a traditional pinch cap made it so that I could run around town with that really magnetic, you know, can't even knock it off. It can bounce around on your side, filter on the front of that fast lens, and then put a pinch cap on it. And when I wanted to use the lens, the filter's still protected, but boom, I could pull the pinch cap. Well, now, even simpler than that, because the pinch cap, if you've been using that like I do, you know it's not the tightest connection. It can get knocked off. It's good. It's better than the magnetic, but now and then you lose a lens cap. The filter stays on because the magnetism is so strong, but the cap can pop off. So, you know, I talked to Kase a little bit about it, and lo and behold, they brought out these plastic magnetic lens caps that have significantly less magnetic adhesion. I mean, they're still on there. You're not gonna just knock them off from a glancing blow, but they're easy to take off. And they have these little notches every few degrees around the side that make it easy to put your finger between it and the external filter. It doesn't matter how many filters you have on there. You know, let's say we're gonna put our, let's see, I got my polarizer, I got my 2-stop neutral density filter. What the heck, let's throw a 6-stop neutral density filter on there too, all right? And then it's just as easy to take off, even off that third filter, as grabbing that little thing, boom, all I have is the cap. To me, this accessory is just exactly what I wanted. And so far, Kase has them in 3 sizes, 3 of the sizes that I sell frequently, and I will be replacing all the caps in my store with these plastic caps. So if you order a Kase magnetic lens cap from me, it's gonna be this plastic cap from the moment this video launches. And they're coming in, at this point, size 49, which works so well for the Leica Q3 or the Fuji X100 series cameras. 82 millimeters, which is what I'm showing you right here, or 95 millimeters. I'm hoping that we get 112 soon. And they'll be expanding the line to other filter sizes, you know, but for right now, those are the 3 sizes. All right, so I'll break this down, we'll set up, and I'll talk to you about the other cool accessory. All right, so the second really cool accessory for Kase's magnetic filter system are these padded inlaid adapter rings. And they come after a whole bunch of back and forth between Kase, its distributor in the US, and me about, you know, how they should think about these inlaid rings that they came up with the innovative design of. These are little magnetic rings that actually thread inside your filter threads up against the face of your lens, leaving some of your filter threads exposed to catch another filter should you desire, and they basically make the tip of your lens into the magnetic adapter. Now, after the original one they came out with and the tool I felt was just a little too dangerous. It was more likely than not that somebody out there was going to wind up damaging their lens installing it. And I sort of poo-pooed the idea, but Kase really is excited about these inlaid adapters. And so they came back to me, well, how could we make them better? How could we change them? And while I still have reservations in certain applications, and I find them at this point a little bit limited, I'm going to talk about why they're amazing for the Leica Q crowd and the Fuji X100 crowd, and people using 82 millimeter filters and 82 millimeter lenses, or most 82 millimeter lenses. But I think that their usability is going to expand greatly, particularly as we get magnetic magnetic step-up adapter rings, where it's a magnet on each end to a larger filter size so that you could thread these native-sized rings into your lens and then just click a magnetic step-up adapter on. So, but for right now, I 100% am using one of these on my Leica Q3 and some of my 82 millimeter lenses, and I'll show you why and how they've improved them. So originally, you know, one of the complaints was that the little plastic tool that they came out with to install these in the lenses seemed dangerous. It was difficult to get them threaded properly. And so they came up with this amazing 3D installation tool that makes that quite a bit safer. You know, if you take a little care, there should be no way that you would mess it up. And I'll show you how that works with my Leica Q3. You know, one of the more expensive lenses that I've ever owned. I'm gonna thread its lens hood off of it to expose just that beautiful Summicron 28 millimeter 1.7 lens. And you know, the first one of these inlaid adapter rings that they gave me with the 3D tool for the Leica, I'm actually going to take the camera off. I'll show it to you a close up with it on the lens. But the first one that they gave me had just a straight metal back, the little ring. And when I threaded it into the camera, as it came up against the face of this lens, I saw, you know, the beautiful white lettering from Leica, and I thought, I don't want to rub metal up against that lettering on the front of my lens. So I talked to Kase and I said, I'm worried about scratching the front of my lens, the face of my lens. And so they came back with these beautifully felted little soft padded backed inlaid adapter rings. So now this one has a padded back and this beautiful 3D installation tool. And so essentially you just take the 3D installation tool and fit it into your filter adapter. As you twist it, you'll feel it lock in. It clicks into these two little detents, and then just set it on the face of your lens gently without touching the lens and kind of rock it back and forth till you feel the threads hit the right spot and engage. And then all you have to do is sort of twist this nice metal tool and it spins it right down into the lens till it's snug. And that padded felt back keeps it from scratching the front of your lens. It's just putting a little nice padded felted piece up against the front of your lens. And now all of a sudden you can drop any of the filters. I love these little stack cap kits for the 49 millimeter filters. So you buy a set of 49 millimeter filters or the individual filters that you want, and then there are these front and rear stack caps, so you can just carry it in your pocket. You know, you can toss it around. They're so magnetic. And if you wanted to, say, throw a UV filter, you just take the cap off, pull your UV filter, and click. It goes right on the front of the lens without even putting, you know, any kind of adapter ring on. It's just ready to go. The front of the lens now accepts magnetic filters natively. Click, right? And one of the nice things is that with such thin filters and the ring to adapt them being inset, you can go ahead and thread the Leica hood right back onto that lens, and there's plenty of room to keep that UV filter if you're working in rough conditions. Still, again, I say the hood is a good protector, but heck, when you've got this expensive a lens, why not protect it a little more with really high quality Kase UV glass? So you can take the UV filter off, you can throw a 3-stop neutral density for working in really bright conditions wide open like we've talked about before. You can throw a circular polarizer on there. You can spin it around. You can say, ooh, you know, let's add another 6 stops of neutral density. So we have 9, that's about 10 stops of neutral density right there. Or, you know, we could do that all, oops, we could do there. Luckily, they're very durable. You could do that all with a single 10-stop filter, right? You can use a little magnetic cap, or guess what? We've got the new plastic ones that don't tend to take the filter off with them. I don't have the little plastic one yet, but I will by the time this video goes live, and I'll have them in my store to purchase. You can take the filters you're not using, stack them back together, lickety split. So the way I like to leave it is by putting a UV filter on the front of my lens and threading my Leica hood right back on over the top of it to keep this expensive lens protected. And then I take my 3, 6, and 10 stop neutral density filters, my circular polarizer, my neutral night filter, and I just stack those between those stack caps and stick them in my pocket or my camera bag, all right? It really is just wonderful to have the lens be natively magnetic without having to put an adapter on it, to be able to throw my hood on with room to spare over the top of the UV filter is an awesome, awesome thing. And again, you know, I think this is a fantastic thing for any of the Leica Q shooters, whether it's the Q, the Q2, or the Q3, given that the lens is pretty much identical. I still think that the Q3-43's lens hood might be too snug to fit over the top. I don't have one with me to test, but the minute that I get a chance, I will. That hood is just really, really, really snug. But you could have the inlaid adapter in place and pull the hood off and slap any of the filters that you want on, just like that. It's great for the Fuji X100 shooters. Those are also 49mm native filter thread cameras. And I've got these padded adapter inlaid rings in 82mm too. If you use your tool and you carefully thread them into the lens, they can turn your 82mm lenses into native 82mm filter adapted lenses without having any kind of adapter threaded on the front, which is a really, really nice thing. And most lenses, you can thread them in there. They'll thread in nice and snug without worrying about damaging the front of your lens because of that nice padding. And there's still room to thread something else in front of it should you desire to put your pinch cap in place. I've got one of them right now on my Viltrox 135 1.8 lens, which I've been testing for Viltrox, and I can still attach its pinch cap nice and easy to it, but the whole front of the lens suddenly now accepts 82mm filters like that. So a really, really slick thing. The only caveat to using it with other lenses like the 82mm lenses I'm describing is you want to look at the filter threads carefully and make sure that when you thread that inlaid adapter ring in, there's not some gap behind the filter threads where they just end and the filter, that really thin inlaid ring, can fall through behind the threads. That happened to me with my Plena. I was able to hold the lens upside down and use a magnetic filter and just spin to make the ring spin until it caught the threads and spin it right back out. You know, that was a pretty slick little move. It worked fine. I didn't damage the lens at all. But I should have looked carefully beforehand. So some lenses may not be as adaptable this way as others. That's gonna just kind of be on you to have a look at your lens and thread it in really carefully using that 3D tool, because it makes it really, really foolproof. It's not like you can slip around and accidentally scratch your lens. These things fit really well. It's nicely machined. So, you know, look at it and be careful with it. But for Leica Q users, the inlaid ring is amazing. And for everybody, the magnetic plastic lens caps, those are so much nicer than either using a pinch cap or the traditional metal Kase lens caps. So I love them, and I appreciate Kase for listening and working with me to improve that product line even that much more. I got to meet with some executives from Kase just a couple of weeks ago and look at some of the new things that are in the pipeline. There's more cool, exciting stuff, some ultra durable, even more UV resistant UV filters that kind of blew my mind. I'll be talking about those before long too. I think we'll be getting those soon. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. We're going to be having an office hours. I believe it's May 13th. It's a Tuesday. I think it's May 13th. Don't hold me to that, but Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. You can sign up for that over at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. You can also click right up here. And you know, it'll be a Q&A session. We'll be talking, probably showing some photos from Costa Rica. I'll be back from that trip. David, Darren, Rick, and I will take your questions. So sign up for either Zoom or YouTube Live, big free photography get together, and leave us a question when you sign up. All right, hope to see you there. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for emailing me. You know, the user input that I get from everybody in this community, whether it's through the YouTube comments or via my personal emails, really, really do drive the content on this channel. And, you know, being out with people, working in the field, I see what's going on with people, and I hear all of your comments, and that's what drives the direction that I take this channel with all the training. So I appreciate all of you for being part of the community, for liking, subscribing, and sharing the videos. Thanks so much. I hope you're all staying safe and staying creative, and we'll see you next week.